14th, 1998, the members of the Tectonic Theater Project traveled to Laramie, Wyoming, and conducted a series of interviews with the people of the town. During the next year, we would return to Laramie several times and conduct over 200 interviews with the people of the town. The play you're about to see is edited from those interviews, as well as from journal entries by company members and other found texts. Company member, Greg Perot.
My first interview was with Sergeant Ting of the Laramie Police Department. At the start of the interview, he was sitting behind his desk, sitting something like this. I was born and raised here. Family is third generation. My grandparents moved here in the early 1900s. Quite a while. It's a good place to live. Good people, lots of space. Now, all the towns in southern Wyoming are laid out in space because the railroad came through. It was how far the trains could go before having to stop to refuel and rewater. Laramie was a major stopping point. That's why all the towns are spaced so far apart. Wyoming is one of the largest states in the country and the least populated.
There's so much space between people and towns here. So much time for reflection.
Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
You have an opportunity to be happy in your life here. I found that people here were nicer than the Midwest because they were happy.
What you have is, you have your old-time traditional type ranchers. They've been around here forever. Laramie's been the hub of where they come for their supplies and stuff like that.
Stewardship is one thing all our ancestors taught us.
Eileen Ingen, rancher.
If you don't take care of the land, then you ruin it and you lose your living. So you first of all have to take care of your land and do everything you can to improve it.
I love it here.
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver.
You couldn't put me back in that mess out there back east if you tried. The best thing about it is the climate, the cold, the wind. They say Wyoming wind will drive a man crazy, but it don't bother me. Well, some of the times it bothers me, but most of the time it don't.
Then you got the university population.
I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Philip Dubois, president of the University of Wyoming.
I loved it there, but you'd have to be crazy to let your kids out after dark. But here, in the summertime, I let my kids play until 11 o'clock at night, and I don't think twice about it.
Then you got the people who live in Laramie, basically.
I moved here from rural Texas.
Zachy Salmon, Laramie resident.
Now, in Laramie, if you don't know a person, you will definitely know someone they know. So it can only be one degree removed at most. And for me, I love it. I mean, I love being able to go to the grocery store and visit with 4 or 5 or 6 different people every time I go. And I don't really mind people know my business, because what's my business? I mean, my business is basically good.
I like the trains, too. They don't bother me. Well, some of the times they bother me, but most of the times they don't, even though one goes by every 13 minutes or so out where I live.
Doc actually lives up in Bossler, but everyone in Laramie knows him. He's also not really a doctor.
They used to carry cattle, them trains. Now, all they carry is diapers and cars.
I grew up in Cody, Wyoming.
April Silva, university student.
Laramie is better than where I grew up. I'll give it that.
It's a good place to live, good people, lots of space. Now, when the incident happened with that boy, a lot of press people came here. And one day, some of them followed me down to the crime scene. Well, it was a beautiful day, absolutely gorgeous, real clear and crisp. And the sky was that blue that you'll never be able to paint. It's just sky blue, absolutely gorgeous. And the mountains in the background with a little snow on them. And one of these reporters, a lady, she came up to me and she said,
Well, who found the boy? Who was out here anyways?
and I said, well, this is a really popular place for people to run in. Mountain biking's big out here, horseback riding it's close to town. And she said,
Who in the hell would want to run out here?
and I'm thinking, lady, you're missing the point. All you gotta do is turn around, see the mountains, smell the air, listen to the birds, just take in what's around you. Nothing but the story. I didn't feel judged. I felt that they were stupid. They're missing the point. They're missing the whole point.
It's hard to talk about Laramie now. To tell you what Laramie is for us.
Jedediah Schultz.
If you would have asked me before, I would have told you Laramie is a beautiful town, secluded enough that you can have your own identity. A town with a strong sense of community. Everyone knows everyone. A town with a personality that most larger cities are stripped of. Now, after Matthew, I would say that Laramie is a town defined by an accident, a crime. We've become Waco, we've become Jasper. We're a noun, a definition, a sign. We may be able to get rid of that, but it will sure take a while.
Journal entries. Members of the company. Andy Paris.
Moises called saying he had an idea for his next theater project, but there was a somberness to his voice, so I asked what that was all about, and he said he wanted to do a piece about what was happening in Wyoming.
Stephen Bellberg.
Lee told me the company was thinking of going out to Laramie to conduct interviews, and they wanted me to come. But I'm hesitant. I have no real interest in prying into a town's unraveling.
Amanda Gronage.
I've never done anything like this in my life. How do you get people to talk to you? What do you ask?
Moises Kaufman.
The company has agreed that we should go to Laramie for a week and interview people. I'm a bit worried about taking 10 people on a trip of this nature. We must make some safety precautions. No one works alone. Everyone carries cell phones. Have made preliminary contact with Rebecca Hilliker, head of the University of Wyoming Theater Department. She has agreed to host a party for us on our first day in Laramie and to introduce us to possible interviewees.
When I first heard that you were thinking of coming here, when you first called me, I wanted to say you just kicked me in the stomach. Why are you doing this to me? But then I thought, you're not doing this to me. And more importantly, I thought about it and decided that we had so much negative closure on this whole thing. When this happened, the media descended, and then the dialogue started, and then all the dialogue stopped. You know, I really love my students because they're free thinkers. And you may not like their opinions, and you may not like what they have to say because it can be very redneck, but they're honest and they're truthful. So there's an excitement here. There's a dynamic here that I never had when I was in the Midwest or in Wyoming or in North Dakota. Because there was so much Puritanism that dictated how the way people thought that a lot of times they didn't have an opinion. You couldn't get them to express an opinion. And honestly, I'd rather have opinions that I don't like and have that dynamic in education. There's a student here I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. Family's been in Wyoming, well, for generations. Now, when it came time to go to college, my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. I wanted to study theater. And I knew that if I was going to go to college, I had to get on a scholarship. And so they have this competition each year, this Wyoming State High School competition. And I knew that if I didn't take first place in duets, that I wasn't going to get a scholarship. So I go to the theater department at the university looking for good scenes. And I talked to one of the professors. I was like, I need a killer scene. And he was like, here you go. This is it. And so I read it, and it was from Angels in America. And so when the time came, I told my parents that they would come see me in the competition. Now, you have to understand, my parents go to everything. I mean, every ball game, every hockey game, everything I've ever done. And so they took me into the room and they told me that if I did that scene, that they would not come see me in the competition because they believe that it is wrong, that homosexuality is wrong. They felt that strongly about it that they wouldn't come see their son do probably the most important thing he'd done to that point in his life. I didn't know what to do. I'd never, ever gone against my parents' wishes, so I was kind of worried about it, but I decided to do it. And all I can remember is when we were done, me and my scene partner, we came up to each other, we shook hands, and there was a standing ovation. Oh man, it was amazing, and we took first place and we won. And that's how come I can afford to be here at the university, because of that scene. It was one of the best moments of my life. My parents weren't there to see me. And to that point, to this point in my life, that was the one thing that my parents didn't see me do. And thinking back on it, I think, why did I do it? Why did I choose to do that scene? Because I'm not gay, so why did I do it? And the only honest answer I can give is, well, I wanted to win. It was such a good scene. It was the best scene. Do you know Mr. Kushner? Maybe you can tell him.
Company member Greg Perotti.
We arrived today in the Denver airport and drove to Laramie. I swear, The moment we crossed the Wyoming border, I saw a herd of buffalo. Also, I thought it was strange that the Wyoming sign said,
Wyoming, like no place on earth.
instead of Wyoming, like no place else on earth.
Company member Lee Fondakowski. We stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat. My waitress said to me,
Hi! My name is Debbie. I was born in 1954, and Debbie Reynolds was big back then, so yes, there are a lot of us around, but I promise I won't slap you if you leave your elbows on the table.
The company tried to explain to me today to no avail what chicken fried steak was.
Now, are y'all from Wyoming, or are you just passing through?
oh, we're just passing through. Company member Barbara Pitts.
We arrived in Laramie tonight, just past the Welcome to Laramie sign, population 26,687. The first thing to greet us was Walmart. In the dark, we could be on any main drag in America, fast food chains, gas stations, but as we drove into the downtown area by the railroad tracks, the building still looked like a turn-of-the-century western town. Oh, and as we passed the University Inn, on the sign were amenities such as heated pool and cable TV are usually touted. It said, hate is not a Laramie value.
Greg Brody.
I met today with two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Murray, two social service workers who taught me a thing or two.
Now, what Laramie used to be like when Marge was growing up, well, it was mostly rural.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, my kids all had horses.
Well, there was just more land. I mean, you could keep your pet cow, your horse, your little chickens, just have your little bit of acreage.
Yeah, I could run around the house in my all-togethers, do the housework while the kids were in school and nobody could see me. And if they got that close...
Well, then that's their problem.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I got the expression right. In your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, honey, why wear clothes?
Now, how's he going to use that in his play?
So this was a big ranching town.
Oh, well, not just ranching. This was a big railroad town at one time before they moved everything to Green River and Cheyenne and Omaha. So now, well, it's a drive-through spot for the railroad. But even in, what was it, in the 50s? Well, Laramie had one big roundhouse, and they had such a shop they could build a complete engine.
They did. My mama worked there.
Your mom worked in a roundhouse?
Yes, she washed engines. Her name was Minnie. We used to, sing that song about. You know that song.
What song?
Run for the roundhouse, Minnie. They can't corner you there.
I'll tell you, Wyoming is bad in terms of jobs. I mean, the university has the big high whoop-de-doo jobs, but the bulk of the people here are working minimum wage.
Yeah, I've been in the service industry or bartending most of my life, but now I know everybody in town.
And she does.
And I do. Now that I'll tell you. Here in Laramie, there is a difference, and there always has been. What it is a class distinction. It's about the well-educated and the ones who are not. And the educated don't understand why the ones who are not don't get educated. That's why I told you before. My kids had to fight because their mother was a bartender. Oh, never mind. I was the best damn bartender in town.
And she was.
That's not bragging. That's fact.
Oh, but if it weren't for the university, we'd all just be SOL.
What's SOL?
Oh, well, do I have to say it? Well, it's shit out of luck. Oh, you got that on your tape, boy. You were getting an education today.
Yeah, I guess I am. So let me just ask you, what was your reaction when this happened to Matthew Shepard?
Well, I've been close enough to the case to know a lot of people. I have a daughter on the sheriff's department. As for the gay issue, I don't give a damn one way or another as long as they don't bother me. And if they did, I'd just say no thank you. And I think that's the opinion of most of the Laramie population. They might poke one if it were a bar situation they've been drinking, maybe even smack one in the mouth, but then they just walk away. Most of them said they'd say, I don't swing that way, and whistle on about their business. Laramie is live and let live.
I'd say Marge probably knows a lot more, except she's willing to say, and we have to respect her for that.
Well, where are you going with this story?
We haven't quite decided. We're going to try to bring it around to Laramie when we're finished.
Then there are parts that I won't tell you.
Company member Andy Paris.
Today, for the first time, we met someone who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Steger, owner of a shop in town, referred to him as Matt.
Matt used to come into my shop. That's how I knew him.
It was the first time I heard him referred to as Matt instead of Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everyone?
I got a call around 10 after 7.
Duck O'Connor.
It was Matthew, and he said to me, can you pick me up on the corner of 3rd and Grand? So anyhow, I pull up to the corner and see, you know, who else? Matthew Shepard. It's a little guy about 5'2", 97 pounds, soaking wet. They said he was about 110 in the papers, but I wouldn't believe him. They also said he was 5'5", but this man was about 5'2" or 5'1". So anyhow, I'll put it slow so you can better understand the principle of this man. So I pull up and he comes up to the window and I ask, are you Matthew Shepard? And he says, I am Matthew Shepard, but don't call me Matthew or Mr. Shepard. Call me Matt. And I am gay and we are going to a gay bar. Do you have a problem with that? And I say, how are you paying? You see, there are no gay bars in Laramie. For that matter, there are none in Wyoming altogether. So he was paying me to drive him an hour away to Fort Collins, Colorado. Now, Matt was a blunt little shit. I mean, I liked him. He was very straightforward, maybe gay, but he was straightforward.
I don't know, you know. How does any one person ever tell about another? You really should talk to my sister, Trish. She was a really close friend of Matthew's.
We never called him Matthew, actually. Most of the time we called him Choo-Choo. You know, because we used to call him Machu, and then we just called him Choo-Choo. And whenever I think of Matthew, I always think of his incredible beaming smile. I mean, he'd walk in and he'd be like, you know, he'd smile at everyone. He just made you feel great. He would like stare people down in the coffee shop because he always wanted to sit at the end seat so he could talk to me while I was working. If someone was sitting in that seat, he'd just sit there and stare at them till they left. Then he would claim his spot. But Matthew definitely had a political side to him. I mean, he really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. I mean, that's the only TV stations I ever saw his TV tuned into. He was just really smart in political affairs, but not too smart in, like, common sense things. So he moves to Laramie to go to school.
Matthew was very shy when he first came here,
John Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
to the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some trouble adjusting, but this was home for him, and he made that quite clear. So his mousiness, his shyness gave way to a person who was excited about this track he was going to embark on. He had just started figuring out wanting to work on human rights, how he was going to do that, and when that happens, this person begins to bloom a little bit. He was starting to say, wow, there are opportunities for me here. There are things I can do in this world. I can be important.
I did hear from Matthew about 48 hours before his attack. He told me that he had joined the gay and lesbian group on campus, and he said he was enjoying it. You know, he was getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. I mean, he was totally stoked about school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, I think that's where he was heading, towards human rights. Which only adds to the irony and the tragedy of this.
I'll tell you what, there are more gay people in Wyoming than meets the eye. I know for a fact. They're not your particular, your queens, your what do you call them, your run around faggot types. Nah, they're the kind that, they throw bell hay and kick ass. Like I always said, don't fuck with the Wyoming queer because they will kick you in your fucking ass. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. I know a lot of gay people. I know a lot of people in Wyoming for that matter. I've lived here some 40-odd years. You see what I'm saying? And I don't think Laramie people give a damn whether you're gay or straight. It's just what I said. They don't care. Now look, there are 8 men, and there's 1 woman in a Wyoming bar. Then you tell me who's getting what. It don't take some big intelligent mind to figure that one out.
Today we are moving from our motel and heading to the Best Western.
Moises Coffee.
Hopefully it's a better Western.
Amanda Grant.
Today we divided up to go to different churches in the community. Moises and I were given a Baptist church. We were welcomed into the services by the Reverend himself, standing at the entrance of the chapel. This is what I remember of his sermon that morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, we are here today to worship the word of the Lord. Now, I have a simple truth that I tell to all my colleagues, and I'm going to tell to you today. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Now, scientists tell me that human history, that the world is 5 billion or 6 billion years old. After all, what's a billion years, give or take? Now, the Bible tells me that human history is 6,000 years old. The word is either sufficient or it is not.
Sociology of religion in the West.
Stephen B. Johnson, Unitarian minister.
Dominant religious traditions in this town, Baptist, Mormon. I mean, they're everywhere, you know. It's not just Salt Lake City. They're all over. They're like jam on toast down here.
The Mormon Church has a little different thing going that irritates some folks.
Doug Laws, state ecclesiastical leader for the Mormon Church.
And that is that we absolutely believe that God still speaks to man today. We don't think it happened and some folks wrote about it in the Bible. God speaks to us today, and we believe that. We believe that the prophet of the church has the authority to receive inspiration and revelation from God.
So the spectrum would be on the left side, so far to the left that I'm probably sitting by myself, me in the Unitarian Church. The Unitarians are by and large humanists. Many of whom are atheists. We don't even know if we're a religion or not. To the other side of the spectrum, on my right hand, would be Father Roger, Catholic priest, who is well established here in Laramie, and God bless him, he did not equivocate at all when this happened. He held the vigil for Matthew that night.
I was very jolted when this happened. I wanted to get other ministers involved when I found out we were hosting the vigil, but they all stood back and were like, we'll just see which way the wind blows, and that angered me immensely. I think we're supposed to stand out as leaders in this community. I thought, wow, what is going on?
God has set boundaries, and one of our responsibilities is to learn. What is it that God wants? So you study Scripture, you look to your leaders, then you know what God wants. Once you kind of know what the boundaries are, then you sort of get a feel for what is out of bounds. There is a proclamation that came out on the family. A family is defined as one woman and one man and children. That's about as clear as you can state it. There's no leniency in the Mormon Church. There's no sexual deviation. We just think it's out of bounds.
I warn you, you will be mocked. You will be ridiculed for the singularity of your faith. But let the Bible guide you. It's in there. It's all in there.
The Christian pastors, many of the conservative ones, were silent on this. Conservative Christians use the Bible to tell the world it says it here in the Bible. Most Americans believe, and they do, that the Bible is the Word of God. How are you going to fight that?
I'm a biblicist, which means the Bible doesn't need me to be true. The Bible is true, whether I believe it or not. The Word is either sufficient or it is not.
I arrived in Laramie on September 15th. I looked around, tumbleweed, cement factory, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing in Wyoming? 3 weeks later, I found out what the hell I was doing in Wyoming.
This morning, I had breakfast with a university student named Zubaida Ullah. She is an Islamic feminist who likes to do things her own way.
I've lived in Laramie since I was 4. Yeah, my parents are from Bangladesh. 2 years ago, because I'm Muslim, I decided to start wearing a scarf. That's really changed my life in Laramie. Yeah, like, people would say things to me like, why do you wear that thing on your head? Like, when I go to the grocery store, I'm not looking to give people Islam 101, you know what I mean? So, I'll be like, well, it's part of my religion, and they'll be like, this is the worst part, because they'll be like, I know it's part of your religion, but why? And it's, how am I supposed to go into this whole doctrine about physical modesty and my own spiritual relationship with the Lord, standing there with my pop and chips? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's so unreal to me that a group from New York would be writing a play about Laramie. And then I was picturing, like, you're going to be in a play about my town. You're going to be on stage in New York, and you're going to be acting like you're us. That is so weird. Hello?
Yes, hello. My name is Amanda Greenwich, and I'm here in Laramie working with the theater company. I went to the Reverend your husband's church on Sunday, and I was extremely interested in speaking with him about some of his ideas on recent events.
Well, I don't think he'll want to talk to you. He has very biblical views about homosexuality. He doesn't condone that kind of violence, but he doesn't condone that kind of lifestyle, if you know what I mean. And the press just bombarded him, and the media's just been terrible about this whole thing.
Oh, I completely understand. It must have just been terrible.
Oh, yes. I think we're all just hoping this just goes away.
Well, do you think that maybe I could call back later and speak with your husband just briefly?
Oh, all right. You can call him back tonight at 9 o'clock.
Thank you so much. I'll do that.
Today, Barbara and I went down to the Fireside Bar, which is the last place Matthew Shepard was seen in public.
The Fireside definitely feels like a college bar with a couple of pool tables and a stage area for karaoke night. Still, the few regulars in the late afternoon are hardly the college crowd.
First person we talked to was Matt Mickelson, the owner.
My great-great-grandfather moved here in 1862. He opened Laramie's first opera house. It was called the Old Blue Front. And in 1870, Louisa Grandma Swain cast the first women's ballot in any free election in the world. And that's why Wyoming is the equality state. So what I'm trying to do is reestablish my bar business here as the Old Blue Front Opera House and Good Times Emporium. You know, I want to have a restaurant, I want to have a gift shop, I want to have a pool hall, do all this shit. You know, every night's ladies' night. So the Fireside here is my first step towards the Old Blue Front Opera House and Good Time Emporium.
So, what about the night that Matthew Shepard was in here?
It was karaoke night. 20 or 30 people. Matthew came in, he was sitting right there, just hanging out. If you want to talk to somebody, you should talk to Matt Galloway. He was the kid that was bartending that night. Gotta meet him. His character speaks for itself. Hey, is Galloway bartending tonight?
All right, I'm gonna make this brief, quick, get it over with, but it'll be everything factual, just the facts. Here we go. 10 o'clock, I clock in, usual time Tuesday nights. 10:30, Matthew Shepard shows up alone, sits down, orders a Heineken.
Phil LeBrie, friend of Matthew Shepard.
Matt always drank Heineken. Even though it was $9.50 for a six-pack, he always drank the same beer.
So what can I tell you about Matt? If you had 1,000 guys just like him, be the most perfect bar I've ever been in, okay? And nothing to do with sexual orientation. Absolute mannerisms, politeness, intelligence, taking care of me, as in tips, everything. Dress nice, clean cut. Some people, you know, just sits down, please, thank you, offers intellect within their vocabulary. So he kicks it there. He didn't seem to have any trouble at all, or like he was looking for anyone in particular. Just enjoy his drink and the company around. Now, approximately 11:45, 11:30, 11:45, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson show up. I didn't know their names then, but they're the accused. They're the perps. They're the accused. They walk in just very stone-faced, dirty, grungy, rude, give me, that type of thing. They walk up to the counter and, as you know, paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters, which, you don't forget that, $5.50 in dimes and quarters. It's a friggin' nightmare. Now, Aaron and Russell, they didn't seem intoxicated at all. They walked in, ordered a pitcher, and kept to themselves in the pool room back there. A few minutes later, they were sort of stumbling around, no beer. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm not going to ask them if they want another one, because obviously they just paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters. I have a really good feeling they don't have any more money.
Romaine Patterson.
Money meant nothing to Matthew, because he came from a lot of it. And he would, hand over his wallet in 2 seconds. Money meant nothing. His shoes might have meant something. They can call it robbery, but I don't buy it, for even an iota of a second.
So a few minutes later, I look over, and I see that Aaron and Russell have been talking to Matt Shepard.
Aaron said that a guy walked up to him and said that he was gay, and that he wanted to get with Aaron and Rose.
Kristen Price, girlfriend of Aaron McKinney.
And then he got aggravated with it and told him that he was straight and didn't want anything to do with him, and walked off. He said that is when he and Russell went into the bathroom and decided since they were gay, he'd get him in the truck and rob him.
Okay, no, they stated that Matt approached them, that he came onto them. I absolutely, positively disbelieve and refute the statement 100%. I'll give you 2 reasons why. 1, character reference. Why would he approach them? Why them? He hadn't approached anyone else all night in the bar. They say that he's a gay, that he's a flaming gay, that he's gonna come on to people like that. It's bullshit. He never came on to me. Hello, come on, I don't believe it. 2, territorialism. It's the word I'll use for this. And that's that Matt was just sitting there. Russell and Aaron were in the pool room. Upon their first interaction, they were in Matt's area, the area that Matt had been seen in all night. So who approached who by that?
But Matthew was the type of person, he would never not talk to someone for any reason. If someone started talking to him, he'd just be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. He had no problems just striking up a conversation with anybody.
He did feel lonely a lot of the times. Me knowing that and knowing how gullible he was, and the fact that he was sitting alone at the bar with no friends, he probably fell right into it. He was probably just more vulnerable.
So the only thing is, and it's basically what I'm testifying to, because unlike the key eyewitness in this case, is that I saw Matthew leave. I saw 2 individuals leave with Matthew. I didn't see their faces, but I saw the back of their heads. And at the same time, Russell and Aaron were no longer in the bar. You do the math.
Actually, I think the DJ was the last one to speak to him on his way out that night. Gave him a cigarette or something. His name's Shadow.
I was the last person to talk to Matt before he left the fireside that night. I was just bullshitting my shit, and he stopped me. I stopped him, actually. He's like, hey, Shadow. And I'm like, well, man, you getting ready to leave? He's like, yeah, man, and this and that. But then I seen them 2 guys, and they stood outside. You could see it. They were standing over there and looking over at him, and he was looking back at them. And I stood and talked to Matt for a good 10 minutes till you seen him real anxious to leave and shit. So when they took off, I seen it when they took off. It was a black truck. It was a small truck. And the 3 of them got in the front seat, and Matt sat in the middle. I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't figure them guys was gonna be like that.
Friend of Aaron McKinney.
Yeah, I've known Aaron a long time. I liked Aaron a lot, actually. I was surprised when I heard this. It's like I knew he was living out in some trailer. That's what he told me, was some girl. They just started dating last summer. He must have gotten pregnant as soon as they started dating, because, I had a kid. He was 21 years old, but he was running around with a little kid. See, that's the type of person Aaron was. He'd always wear these big name clothes, like Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, Gucci. The time I knew him, he was just a regular kid, just trying to fit in, acting tough and acting cool, but he would get in his face about it, and he would back down, like he was a little scared kid.
Russell was just so sweet. He was the one who was the Eagle Scout. I mean, his whole presence was just quiet and sweet. So of course it doesn't make any sense to me, and I know people snap or whatever like it wasn't a real intimate relationship. I was just his landlord. I did work with him at the Chuck Wagon too, and I remember once at the Christmas party, he was just totally drunk out of his mind. Like, we were pretty much all just party time, but he wasn't belligerent, he didn't change. His personality didn't change. I remember he came up to me and said, when you get a chance, Sherry, can I have a dance? Which we never did get around to doing that, but now I just want to shake him, What were you thinking? What in the hell were you thinking?
The fence. I've been out there 3 or 4 times, I've taken visitors. Clearly, it's a very powerful personal experience to go out there. It's become a pilgrimage site. I mean, it's so empty and stark. And you can just imagine Matthew lying there for 18 hours in nearly freezing temperatures and with that view up there so isolated. And the words, God, my God, why have you forsaken me? Come to mind.
Company member Greg Perotti.
Phil Labrie, a friend of Matthew's, took us to the fence this morning. Broke down the minute I touched it. I feel such a strong kinship with this young man. On the way home, I made sure nobody saw me crying.
Lee Fondakowski.
Greg was crying on the way back. I couldn't bring myself to tears, but I felt the same way. I have an interview this afternoon with Aaron Kreifels, the boy who found Matthew out there at the fence, but I just don't think I'm up for it. I'm gonna have to see if someone else can do it.
Well, I took off from my dorm on my bike at about 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. I just sort of felt like going for a ride. So, I was up near Cactus Canyon, and I'm not really super familiar with that area, so on my way back down, I didn't know where I was going. I was just sort of picking the way to go, which now makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there's no way I was going to go that way. So, I was in some deep-ass sand, and I wanted to turn around, but for some reason, I just kept going. And there was this rock on the ground, and I just drilled it, and I went over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. So I was just sort of dusting myself off. I got up, I was looking around, and I noticed something, which ended up to be Matt, and he was just lying there by a fence. But I just thought it was a scarecrow. I was like, oh, Halloween's coming up. Thought it was a Halloween gag, so I didn't think much of it. So I grabbed my bike, and I walked it around to the front of the fence that was there. It's a buck-type fence. And I got closer to him and saw his hair. And that was a major key to me, noticing it was a human being was his hair. Because up until that point, I just thought I was a dummy. Seriously, I even saw his chest going up and down. I just thought it was some kind of mechanism. I just thought it was a dummy. But when I saw hair, I knew it was a human being, and I just ran as fast as I could to the nearest house and called the police.
I responded to the call.
Officer Reggie Flutie.
Now, when I got there, at first, the only thing I could see was partially somebody's feet. And so I got out of my vehicle and raced over. Now, I seen what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old, because he was so tiny, laying on the ground, and he was tied to the fence. I was doing the best I could. The young gentleman laying on the ground, Matthew Shepard, he was partially covered in dry blood and blood all over his head. He was doing the best he could. I tried to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth to open. His mouth wouldn't open for me. Like I said, he was partially covered in dry blood and blood all over his head, and the only place where he did not have any blood on him, on his face, was what appeared to be where he had been crying down his face. His head was distorted, It did not look normal. It looked as if he had a real harsh head wound.
I was working in the emergency room the night Matthew Shepard was brought in. I don't think that any of us remember seeing a patient in that condition for a long time. Those of us who've worked in big city hospitals have seen this, but we have some people here who've not worked in a big city hospital, and it's not something you expect here. You expect to see these kinds of injuries coming from a car going down a hill at 80 miles an hour. You expect to see gross injuries from something like that, this horrendous, terrible thing. But you don't expect to see that coming from someone doing this to another person. The ambulance report said it was a beating, so we knew.
And there was nothing I could have done. I mean, if there was anything I could have done, I would have done it, but there was nothing, and I was yelling at the top of my voice, trying to get something out of him, like, hey, wake up, hello! But he didn't move, he didn't flinch, he didn't anything.
He was tied to the fence. His hands were thumbs out in what we call a cuffing position. The way we handcuff people. He was bound by a real thin white rope, and it went around the bottom end of the pole about 4 inches up off the ground. His shoes were missing. He was tied extremely tight, so I used my boot knife and tried to slip it between the rope and his wrist. Now I had to be extremely careful not to harm Matthew any further.
Well, your first thought is, certainly you'd like to think that it was somebody from out of town who comes through and beats somebody. I mean, things like this happen, shit happens, and it happens in Laramie. But if there has been somebody who has been beaten repeatedly, well, Certainly this is something that is going to offend us. Yes, I think that's a good word. It offends us.
It was bound so tight. And when I finally got the knife through there, I'm sorry, I rolled him over to his left side, and when we did that, he quit breathing. So I immediately put him back on his back, and that was just enough of an adjustment. I was able to cut him free there. Now, I seen the EMS unit try to get to the location, and when it got there, we put a neck collar on him, placed him on the backboard, and scooted him from underneath the fence. And then Rob drove the ambulance to Ivinson Hospital's emergency room.
Now, the strange thing is, about 20 minutes before the ambulance comes in with Matthew, Aaron McKinney was brought in by his girlfriend. Now, I guess he had gone into a fight later on that night back in town. So I'm working on Aaron when the ambulance comes in with Matthew. Now, at this point, I do not know there is a connection at all, so I tell Aaron to wait, and I go, and I treat Matthew. So there you have Aaron in one room of the ER and Matthew in another, just 2 doors down. Now, as soon as we saw Matthew, it was very clear that his care was beyond our capabilities. Called the neurosurgeon at Puget Valley, and he was on the road in an hour and 15 minutes, I think.
He showed me a picture. Days later, I saw a picture of Matthew. I would have never recognized him.
And 2 days later, I found out the connection, and I was very struck. These were 2 kids. They were both my patients, and they were 2 kids. I took care of both of them, of both their bodies. And for a brief moment, I wondered if this is how God feels when he looks down at us. How we are all his children. Our bodies, our souls. And I felt a great deal of compassion for both of them.
This is John Peacock, Matthew's academic advisor.
News reports started trickling out on Thursday, but no names were mentioned. All that was mentioned was that there was a man, Laramie man, found beaten, out on the prayer, basically. Later on in the evening, they mentioned his name. It was like that can't be. That's not the Matthew Shepard I know. That's not my student. That's not this person who I've been meeting with.
I was in the coffee shop,
Romaine Patterson.
and someone pulled me aside, and they said, I don't know much, but they say there's been a young man who's been beaten in Laramie, and they said his name was Matthew Shepard. He said, do you think this could be our Matthew? And I said, well, yeah, it sounds like it could be our Matthew. So I called my sister Trish, and I'm just like, tell me everything you know. I said, I need you to tell me anything, because I don't know anything.
So I was talking on the phone with my sister, and that's when the whole story just came up on Channel 5 News. It was just like, boom.
The news reports kept rolling in. Young University of Wyoming student, his age, his description. It was like, oh my God.
And I just felt sick to my stomach. It's just instantly sick to my stomach, and I had to tell Romaine, yes, it was Matthew. It was your friend.
Well, I'll tell you what's overwhelming.
Matt Galloway.
Friday morning, I first find out about it. Go to class, I walk out, boom. There it is, in the branding iron. So I immediately drive over to the nearest newsstand, buy a Laramie Boomerang because I want more details. Buy that, go home. Before I can even open the paper, my boss calls me. He says,
Did you hear about what happened?
I'm like, yeah.
Is he in the bar Tuesday night?
I go, yes, he was.
We've got to get down here right now. We've got to discuss this. We've got to talk about what's going to go on.
At this point, I was starting to get upset. Still, the severity wasn't out yet.
It's Thursday afternoon.
Rulon Stacy at Puget Valley Hospital.
I got a call. We just got a kid in from Wyoming. Looks like he might be the victim of a hate crime. We've got a couple of reporters here asking questions. So we decided that we needed one spokesperson. CEO, I'll do that, and we'll try to gather as much information as we can.
And then I watched the 10 o'clock news that night. He started speaking about the nature and the seriousness of it.
So I'm on the phone with Mickelson, and he's like,
We need to go to the island of the arraignment so we can identify these guys and make sure these are the guys in the bar.
so we go to the arraignment.
Today, we turn our focus to Laramie, Wyoming and the Albany County Courthouse, where Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson are being charged for the brutal beating of Matthew Shepard, a gay university student of Laramie, Wyoming.
The arraignment was Friday. It was right around lunchtime, and I just took off and said, I'm just going, it's just down the street. So I walked a few blocks and I went. Has anybody told you about the arraignment? Well, there was a lot going on at the time, and people were just wondering, what would happen, and they were sitting on the edge of their seats on pins and needles, like what would happen when the perpetrators walked in. And what happened was, well, there's 200 people in the room at this point, and they walked in their completely orange jumpsuits and their shackles, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was incredibly solemn. I mean, lots of people were teary at that point. Then the judge came in and did a reading. It's a reading of evidence the prosecution has, and it's a statement of facts. And the reading of facts was,
The essential facts are that the defendants, Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson, met Matthew Shepard at the fireside bar, and after Mr. Shepard confided he was gay, the subjects deceived Mr. Shepard into leaving with them in their vehicle to a remote area. Upon arrival at said area, the subjects tied their victim to a buck fence, robbed him, tortured him, and beat him. Both subjects were later contacted by officers of the Laramie Police Department, who observed in the cab of their pickup a credit card and pair of black patent leather shoes belonging to the victim, Matthew Shepard.
I don't think there was any person who was left in that courtroom who wasn't crying at the end of it. I mean, it lasted 5 minutes, but it kept on getting more and more horrific, ending with,
Said defendants left the victim begging for his life.
Sergeant Hill.
How could this happen? I just don't understand, and I think a lot of people don't understand how someone could do something like this. We've got one of the most vocal populations of gay people in the state, and it's pretty much live and let live.
Laramie resident Jeffrey Lockwood.
My secret hope was that they weren't from here. Then, of course, you can create that distance. Oh, we don't grow children like that here. Well, it's pretty clear that we do grow children like that here.
So that was the arraignment, and my response was pretty catatonic, not sleeping, not eating. Just don't leave me alone right now.
More and more details came in about the sheer brutality, motivations, how this happened, and then quite frankly, the media descended and there was no time to reflect on it anymore.
Laramie, Wyoming, often called the Gem City of the Plains, is now at the eye of the storm. Cowboy State has its rednecks and yahoos for sure, but there are no more bigots per capita in Wyoming than there are in New York, Florida, or California. The difference is that there are no fewer high places
But it's
or
really an
anything but
extreme
very
version of what happens in our schools on a daily basis.
It's a tough business, as Matt Shepard knew, and as all his friends know, to be gay in cowboy country.
It was huge. Yeah, it was heard, and we're talking hundreds of reporters, which makes a huge dent in this town's population. There are news reporters everywhere, news trucks everywhere on campus, everywhere in the town. We're not used to that type of attention to begin with. We're just not used to that type of exposure.
Tiffany Edwards, local reporter.
These people are predators. Like this one journalist, I actually caught one of the judges in the bathroom at the urinal, and it was like asking questions, and the judge was like, "Excuse me, sir, can I have some privacy?" And the journalist was actually offended that he asked for privacy. I mean, this is not how journalism started, like the Gutenberg Press, you know?
I'll tell you what, when hard copy came and taped me, I take them right back. I have every word I have ever said on tape, so if anyone ever tries any funny business, they better watch their fucking ass.
Wyoming Governor, first-term Republican up for re-election.
I am outraged and sickened by the heinous crime committed against Matthew Shepard. I extend my most heartfelt sympathies to his family.
Governor, you haven't pushed hate crime legislation in the past.
I urge the people of Wyoming against overreacting in any way that gives one group special rights over others. We shall see if the vicious beating and torture of Matthew Shepard was motivated by hate.
Governor,
At the beginning of the news story, where they got the graphics in the background, and it's like murder in Wyoming, and Wyoming's dripping red like it's got blood on it or something, and it's like, what is this? This is sensationalism. We're like, we had the guy in jail in less than a day. I think that's pretty damn good.
And for us to be more or less maligned,
Eileen and Gil Ingram.
that we're not a good community, and we are. The majority of people here are good people.
You get bad apples once in a while, but I think the gay community took it as an advantage and said it was a good time to exploit this.
Bill McKinney, father of the accused.
Had this been a heterosexual, these two boys decided to take out and rob, this would never have made the national news. Now my son is guilty before he's even had a trial.
Look, I do think that the media has made people accountable because they make people think. Because people are sitting in their homes, watching TV, listening to CNN, watching Dan Rather and going, well, Jesus Christ, that's not how it is here. Well, how is it here?
Matthew Shepard medical update, October 10th, 3 p.m. At this point, I looked out, and where there had been 2 or 3 reporters, there were at least 10 or 15 still photographers, another 20 or 30 reporters, at least 10 video cameras. My parents had just arrived. I had just barely introduced myself to them. I looked out there and I thought, my gosh, what am I going to do? Matthew Shepard was admitted in critical condition approximately 9:15 October 7th. He arrived, he was unresponsive, and breathing support was being provided. Matthew's major injuries upon arrival consisted of hypothermia and a fracture from behind the head to just in front of the right ear. This has caused bleeding in the brain, as well as pressure on the brain. There were also several lacerations on his head, face, and neck. Matthew's temperature has fluctuated wildly, ranging from 98 to 106 degrees. We have had difficulty stabilizing his temperature. Matthew's parents arrived at 7 p.m. October 9th. The following is a statement from them. First of all, we would like to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and fond wishes for a speedy recovery. Their thoughts and prayers are something that we appreciate, and we know that Matthew would too. We also have a very serious request for the members of the media. Matthew is very much in need of his family at this time. We ask that you respect our privacy, as well as Matthew's, so that we can continue to focus all of our love, thoughts, and efforts on our son. Thank you very much.
Both Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson pled not guilty to the charge. Their girlfriends, Chastity Paisley and Kristen Price, also pled not guilty after being charged as accessories after the fact. On our next trip, we spoke with the chief investigator on the case, Detective Rob DeBeer at the Albany County Courthouse.
I guess the thing that bothered me the most was going to Clear Valley where Matthew was, and what bothered me the most was actually seeing him, touching him. As a homicide detective, you see bodies. This poor boy is sitting here, fighting his whole life, trying to make it. I wanted it so by the book, you know?
I keep seeing that picture in my head when I found him.
Aaron Price.
And it's not pleasant whatsoever. I don't want it to be there. I want to, like, get it out. And it's kind of unbelievable to me. You know, that I was the one who found him. Because the big question with me and with, like, my religion is, why did God want me to find him?
I know how to take care of myself. And I was irrationally terrified.
Catherine Connolly.
So what that means is not letting my 12-year-old son walk the streets, seeing a truck do a U-turn and thinking it's coming after me, having to stop because I'm shaking so bad. And in fact, the pickup truck did not come after me, but my reaction was to have my heart in my mouth.
Ultimately, no matter how you dice it, I did have an opportunity.
Matt Galloway.
If I had hindsight of perfect 2020, I stopped. I keep thinking to myself, I should have noticed. These guys should not have been talking to this guy. I should not have had my head down for those 20 seconds I was washing dishes. Things I could have done. What the hell was I thinking?
So you do a lot of studying. You spend hours and hours and hours. You study and study and study, going back to your detectives and speaking to witnesses, and you keep coming back to this flash of seeing Matthew. I wanted this so tight that there was no way they were going to get out of this.
One of the things that happened when I got to the fence,
Reggie flew.
it was an overwhelming amount of blood. And so you put these protective gloves on, but at the time we had a really cheap sheriff. And so he bought us shit gloves, you know? You put them on, and they just keep breaking until finally you just ran out of gloves. So you figure, well, don't hesitate, you know? That's what your mind keeps telling you, don't hesitate. So you just keep moving and you try to help Matthew and find an airway, and that's what you do, you know?
The thing I wasn't telling you before is that Reggie is my daughter.
Marge Murray.
And when she first told me she wanted to be a police officer, well, I thought there was not a better choice for her. She could handle whatever came her way.
Probably a day and a half later, the hospital called me and told me that Matthew had HIV. And the doctor said, well, you've been exposed. You've had a bad exposure because, you see, I had been building this lean-to for my llamas, and my hands, they had a bunch of open cuts on them, and I was kind of screwed. And so you think, oh, shoot, you know?
Would you like to talk about losing sleep?
And so I said to the doctor, okay, what do I do now? And they said, get up here. So I got up there and we started the ATZ drugs immediately.
Now, they told me that that's a medication where if it's administered 36 hours after you've been exposed, it can maybe stop your getting the disease.
That is mean, nasty medicine. Mean. I've lost 10 pounds and a lot of my hair.
And quite frankly, I wanted to lash out at somebody. Not at Matthew, please understand that. Not one of us was mad at Matthew, but we maybe wanted to squeeze McKinney's head off. And I think about Henderson, you know? Two absolutely human beings causing so much grief for so many people. It's been terrible for my whole family, but especially for her and her kids.
I think it brought home to my girls what their mom does for a living.
Well, Reggie, you know what I'm going to tell you now.
And well, my parents, well, they both said the same damn thing.
You're quitting this damn job.
And it's just a parent thing, you know, and they're terribly proud of you because you do a good job, whether it's handling a drunk or handling a case like this. And it's just, well, they don't want you getting hurt.
Like I said, there's a right way, a wrong way, and there's Reggie's way.
And so finally I said, for God's sakes, Francis, lighten up.
You are so stubborn.
They say I'm stubborn, but I don't believe it. I just think, well, okay, I've heard your opinion and now here's mine. I'm 39 years old. I mean, what are they gonna do? Spank me?
Reggie, don't give me any ideas.
It'll look pretty funny. I mean, what can they say?
I just hope she doesn't go before me. I just couldn't handle that.
University of Wyoming President Philip Dubois.
Well, this was a young person who read my statement in the Denver Post article and sent an email to me directly that said,
You and the straight people of Laramie and Wyoming are responsible for the beating of Matthew Shepard, just as the Germans who look the other way are responsible for the deaths of the Jews, the gypsies, and the homosexuals. You have taught your straight children to hate their gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, unless and until you acknowledge that Matt Shepard's beating was not just a random occurrence, not just the work of a couple of random crazies. You have Matthew's blood on your hands.
nah, I can't tell you what that does to you. And it's like, you can't possibly know what I'm thinking. You can't possibly know what this has done to me and my family and my community.
That first week alone, vigils for Matthew Shepard were held in Laramie, Denver, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. Soon after, in Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Minneapolis, and Portland, Maine, among others. In Los Angeles, 5,000 people gathered. And in New York City, a political rally ended in civil disobedience and hundreds of arrests. The Puget Valley Hospital website received close to 1 million visitors from across the country and around the world, all expressing hope for Matthew's recovery. Matthew Shepard medical update at 9 a.m. Sunday, October 11th.
It's a
As of 9 a.m. today, Matthew Shepard remains in critical condition. Family would again like to emphasize that the media respect their privacy. Family also wants to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and concerns for their son.
There are certain things when I sit in church.
Jedediah Schultz.
And the Reverend will tell you flat out he doesn't agree with homosexuality. And I don't know. I think I'm still going through changes. I'm still learning about myself, and I don't feel like I know enough about certain things to make a decision that says homosexuality is right when you've been raised your whole life that it's wrong. So, I mean, right now, I would say that I don't agree with it. Yeah, that I don't agree with it. But maybe that's just because I couldn't do it. I mean, speaking in religious terms, I don't think that's how God intended it to happen. But I mean, I don't hate homosexuals or anything like that. I mean, I'm not going to persecute them or anything at all. It's not going to be getting in between me and the other person at all.
Well, it's preached in schools that being gay is okay and yada yada yada.
Conrad Miller.
And if my kids asked me, I'd set them down and I'd say, this is what gay people do. This is what animals do. This is the life, this is the lifestyle. And then I would say, this is why I believe it is wrong.
There's more gay people around than what you think. Murdoch Cooper doesn't bother any people because most of them that are gay or lesbian, they know damn well who to talk to. If you step out of line, you're asking for it. Some people are saying that he made a pass at them. You don't pick up regular people. Now, I'm not excusing their actions, but it makes me feel better knowing that it was partially Matthew Shepard's fault and partially theirs. You know, maybe it's 50-50.
Yes, as a lesbian, I was more concerned for my safety.
Zachy Salmon.
I mean, I think we all were, and I think it's because deep down we all knew it could happen to us at any time, you know? I mean, I would be afraid to walk down the street and display any type of physical affection for my partner because you don't do that in Laramie.
Well, there's this whole idea, I leave you alone, you leave me alone.
Jonas Slonaker.
And it's even in some of the Western literature, you know, live and let live. And as a gay man, all I can say is that is such crap. I tell my friends that all the time, even my gay friends bring it up sometimes. I'm like, that is crap, you know? I mean, basically what it boils down to, I don't tell you I'm a fag and you won't beat the shit out of me. What is so great about that? That's a great philosophy?
We went to the candle vigil,
Zubaida Ullah.
and it was so good to be with people who felt like shit. I kept feeling like I don't deserve to feel this bad, you know? And then someone got up there and said, blah, 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 blah. And then they said, I'm saying it wrong, but basically they said, come on, guys, let's show Laramie that it's not this kind of a town. But it is that kind of a town. If it wasn't this kind of a town, then why did this happen here? I mean, you know what I mean, like, that's a lie, because it happened here. So, how can it not be a town where this kind of thing happens? I mean, like, that's like looking at an Escher painting and getting all confused, like, it's just totally like circular logic, like, how can you even say that? And we have to mourn this, and we have to be sad that we live in a town, a state, a country where shit like this happens. I mean, these are people trying to distance themselves from this crime. And we need to own this crime. I feel everyone needs to own it. We are like this. We are like this. We are like this.
Well, one afternoon, I went down to the fireside bar and I ran into two friends of Aaron McKinney, Shannon and Jen. So, you two knew Aaron well, right?
Yeah, we both did. When I first found out, I thought it was really, really awful. I don't know whether Aaron was fucked up or whether he was coming down or what. But Matthew had money. Shit, he had better clothes than I did. Matthew is a little rich bitch.
You shouldn't call him a rich bitch, though. That's not right.
Well, I'm not saying he was a bad guy either. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Said the wrong things. And I don't know, I won't lie to you. There was times I was all messed up on meth and I thought about going out and robbing. But I mean, I never did. But yeah, it was there. It's easy money.
Aaron's done that thing before. They both done it. I know one night they went to Cheyenne to go do it. They came back with probably $300. I don't know if they ever chose like gay people as their particular targets, but whatever, it looked like they had a lot of money, and that was, they could outnumber or overpower. It's fair game.
Do you think there was any homophobia at all involved in this that contributed to some of it?
Probably pissed him off that Matthew was gay, because he didn't like the gay people I used to interact with. He was fine as long as it didn't hit on him, as long as it didn't come up.
As long as they weren't doing it in front of him.
Do you get the impression that Aaron knew other gay people?
I'm pretty sure he knew other gay people. I mean, he worked up there at the KFC, and there were a couple people up there that... Yeah, and I'm not saying it's bad or anything, because, I don't know, half the people I know here in Laramie are gay.
What would you guys say to Aaron if you saw him right now?
First of all, I'd ask him if he'd do any more tweeting.
I saw Aaron now, I'd just be like, man, why'd you fuck up like that? But I don't want to make sure he's doing good in there. I'm sure he is, though. I probably just want to, hang out with him.
Smoke a bowl with him.
I bet he wants one so bad.
So, you guys both went to Laramie High.
Yeah, can't you tell? We're a product of our society.
On a day that is traditionally given over to nothing more profound than collegiate exuberance in the fortunes of the University of Wyoming football team, this community on the High Plains had a different homecoming Saturday as many searched their souls in the wake of a vicious, apparent anti-gay hate crime. University President Philip Dubois.
This was homecoming weekend, and there were a lot of people in town. So, the students organized to tag onto the back bench, behind the banner supporting Matt. And everybody wearing the armbands that the students had created.
I live in the center of town.
Harry Woods.
And I have windows on two opposite sides of my apartment. One faces north and one faces south. And this is the exact route of the homecoming parade this year now. On the day of the parade, I had a cast on my leg from a prior fall, so I was very disappointed to find out I couldn't march with the people walking from Matthew Shepard. So I watched from my window, and it was just I'm 52 years old and I'm gay, and I was very pleased to find out they were having a tag at the end of the parade for Matthew Shepard. So the parade moved down to the end of the block, and I went to the opposite side of my apartment to watch from the window.
I was right up front there where they were holding the banner for Matthew. And let me tell you, I've never had goosebumps so long in my life. It was incredible. I mean, a mass of families, mothers holding their 6-year-old kids, trying these armbands around these 6-year-old kids and trying to explain to them why they had to wear the armbands. Amazing. It was absolutely one of the most beautiful things I've ever done in my life.
So about 10 minutes went by, and sure enough, the parade came down the opposite end of the street, and then I noticed the most amazing thing. The parade had grown 5 times. There were 500 people walking from Matthew Shepard. 500 people. The tag at the end was larger than the entire parade. And you know what? I had started to cry. There were tears streaming down my face. And my first thought was, thank God I got to see this in my lifetime. And my second was, thank you, Matthew.
I really haven't been all that involved per se. My husband's a highway patrolman, so that's really how I've known about it. Now, when I first found out, I just thought it was horrible. I can't. Nobody deserves that. I don't care who you are. But the other thing that was not brought out at the same time that happened, that patrolman was killed. And there was nothing. Nothing. They didn't say anything about the old man that killed him. He was driving down the road, and he shouldn't have been driving, and he killed him. And it was just a little piece in the paper, and we lost one of our guys. And I think most of it is my feeling that the media is portraying Matthew Shepard as a saint and as a martyr, and I don't think he was that pure. I just don't think he was. Now, I didn't know him, but there's just so many things I heard about him that it's scary, you know, about his character and spreading AIDS and a few other things. You know, he was just a barfly, you know. Now, everybody's got problems, but why they exemplified him, I don't know. What's the difference if you're gay? A hate crime is a hate crime. If you murder somebody, you hate them. It has nothing to do with if you're gay or a prostitute or whatever. I don't understand. I just don't understand.
Company member Lee Fondakowski. This is one of the last days on our second trip to Laramie. Greg and I have been conducting interviews nonstop, and we're exhausted.
At 7:30 a.m. we are to meet Father Roger. I was wishing we could just skip it all together, but we have to follow through to the end. So here we are. 7:30 in the morning. 2 queers and a Catholic priest.
Matthew has served us well. You realize that? He has served us well, and I don't mean to condemn him to perfection, but I cannot name anyone who has done more for this community than Matthew Shepard, and I'm not going to say I was some big bold guy, no fear, I was scared. When we first heard we were hosting the vigil, I thought, well, maybe we should call the bishop to ask for his permission, and then I thought, well, hell no, I'm not doing that. His permission doesn't make it correct, and I'm not knocking bishops or anything, but what is correct is correct. You realize that? But you people are just here for a search. I will do this. I will trust that if you write a play of this, that you will do it right. You need to do your best to say it correct. I think you have a responsibility to do that. Don't go about making matters worse. You think what they did to Matthew was violence? Yes. What they did to Matthew was violence. But you realize every time that they call you a fag or a les or whatever.
Or a dyke.
Or a dyke. That is the seed of violence. And I would resent it immensely if you used anything I said to spread that seed. Do you realize that I would resent it immensely?
Thank you, Father, for saying that.
Yes, just say it right. Say it correct.
Andrew Gomez.
I was in there. I was in jail with Aaron in December. I got thrown in over Christmas. 2 counts, assault and battery. I don't want to talk about it. But we was sitting there, eating our Christmas dinner, my motherfucking bread, my little roll and whatnot, and I asked him, hey homie, tell me something. Tell me something, please. Why did you... Okay, I'm starting to think how I worded this. Why did you kill a faggot if you're going to be destined to be a faggot later? You know? So why would you do that? Think about that. He's either going to get humped a lot or he's going to die. So why would you do that? Think about that. I don't understand that. And you know what he told me? Honest to God, this is what he said. He said, he tried to grab my dick. That's what he said, man. He's dumb, dog. He don't even act like it was nothing. I heard they was auctioning those boys off. You know, up there in the Max Ward. You know, where the killers go. I heard that when they heard Aaron was coming to prison, they was auctioning those boys off. They said, I want him. I'll put aside 5, 6, 7 cartons of cigarettes. Auction his ass off. I'd be scared to go to prison if I was those 2 boys.
Hello.
Reverend?
Yes, hello.
I believe your wife told you a bit about why I'm contacting you.
Oh, yeah, she did. Let me tell you, I'm not sure that I really want to talk about this incident. I'm somewhat involved, but I just don't think...
Oh, no, I completely understand, and I don't blame you. You know, I went to your church on Sunday.
You went to the service on Sunday?
Yes, I did.
On Sunday?
Yes, this past Sunday.
Did I meet you?
Yes, you greeted me at the beginning, I believe.
I see. Well, let me tell you. I'm not afraid to be controversial or to speak my mind, and that's not necessarily the views of my congregation per se. Now, as I said, I'm somewhat involved. That the girl in this case, well, the girlfriend of the accused is a member of our congregation, and one of the accused has visited. Now, we've been after the two boys I mentioned for ages, trying to get them to live right and to do right. Now, one boy is on suicide watch, and I'm working with him. But until they put him in the chair and turn on the juice, I will work for his salvation. Now, I do think they deserve the death penalty. I will try to work with them spiritually.
Right, I understand.
Now, as for the victim, I know that kind of lifestyle is legal, but I will tell you one thing. I hope that Matthew Shepard, as he was tied to that fence, had time to reflect on a moment when someone had spoken the word of the Lord to him. And I hope that before he slipped into a coma, he had a chance to reflect on his lifestyle.
Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate your speaking.
That night, I had just barely gone to bed. And Margot, the chief operating officer, called me. His blood pressure is starting to drop. Well, let's just wait and see. She called me again about 10 after. He had just died, and so I quick got dressed and got up and went to the ICU where the family was. And Judy was there, and she put her arms around me, and I put my arms around her, and we stood there, honestly, for like 10 minutes. It's just, what else do you do? Then we had to talk about things that you just... Dennis, it's now public knowledge. And I'm going to go out there and tell the whole world that this is happening. Because at this point, it was obvious to us that this was the world. This was the whole world. So Judy told me what she wanted me to say. I went out there at 4 o'clock a.m.
Matthew Shepard, medical update for 4:30 a.m., Monday, October 12th.
12 midnight on October 12th, Matthew Shepard's blood pressure began to drop. We immediately notified his family, who was already at the hospital. 12:53 a.m., Matthew Shepard died. His family was at his bedside. The family did release the following statement. The family would again like to thank the entire world for the overwhelming response for their son. The family was grateful that they did not have to make a decision regarding whether or not to continue life support for their son. Like a good son, he was courteous to the end and removed any stress or guilt from the family. Matthew's mother said, "Go home. Give your kids a hug and don't let a day go by without telling them that you love them." And I don't know how I let that happen, but I lost it on national television, but we've been up for like 72 hours, and gone home and gone to bed for half an hour and had to get up and come back in, and I don't know, standing out there reading that statement, my own 4 daughters, and go home and hug your kids. And, oh my God, that woman doesn't have her child anymore. And here I am thinking, this is so lame. And then we started to get these letters, and most of them were generally very kind. There was this one. This guy wrote me and said, "Do you cry on TV like a baby for all your patients or just the faggots?" And homosexuality is not a lifestyle with which I agree. But having been thrown into this, I guess I didn't understand the magnitude with which some people hate. And of all the letters, there were 2 or 3 that were like that. Most of them were
Thank you for your caring and compassion. Matthew had caring and compassion from the moment he got here.
I spoke with Doc today and told him we'd soon be coming back out to Laramie for the upcoming trials of Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson. This is what he had to say.
I'll tell you what, if they put those two boys to death, it will go against everything Matthew had ever believed in. He would not want them to die. He would want them to have hope. H-O-P-E, just like the entire world had hoped that Matthew would survive. The whole thing, you see, the whole thing revolves around hope. H-O-P-E.
Day of the funeral, snowing so bad, and there were thousands of people, just black, umbrellas everywhere. And there were two churches, one for the immediate family, special guests, and people of that nature, and then another one for just people who wanted to be there. And there was a park by one of the churches, and that's where the people were. And the park was full.
The liturgy today is an Easter liturgy. It finds its meaning in the resurrection. The service invites your full participation. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray.
And I guess it was like the worst storm that they've had.
Tiffany Edwards.
Not that anybody could ever tell. Like the trees fell down and the power went out for a couple days because of it. I couldn't help but think it's like the force of the universe at work, you know? Like whatever higher spirit that blows storms is blowing this storm.
Let us pray to our Lord Jesus Christ, who said, I am the resurrection and the life. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Lord, you who consoled Martha and Mary in their distress, draw near to us those who mourn for Matthew, and dry the tears of those who weep. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You wept at the grave of Lazarus, your son. Comfort us in our sorrows. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You raised the dead to life. Give to our brother eternal life. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You promised paradise to the thief who repented. Bring our brother the joys of heaven. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
He was nourished in your body and blood. Grant him a place at the table in your heavenly kingdom. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Comfort us in the sorrows at the death of our brother. May our faith be our consolation, and eternal life our hope. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
My most striking memory from the funeral
Carrie Drake, Casper Star Tribune.
is seeing the Reverend Fred Phelps from Kansas, that scene go up in the park.
Do you believe the Bible? Do you believe you are supposed to separate the precious from the vile? You don't believe that part of the Bible? You stand over there ignorant of the fact that the Bible, 2 times for every verse it talks about God's love, it talks about God's hate.
A couple high school kids who got out early came over and started yelling at these people in the protest, the Fred Phelps people, and across the street you had people lining up for the funeral. Well, I remember this skinhead, right? And he came over and he was dressed in all leather and spikes everywhere, and he came over from across the street where the protest was, and he came into the crowd, and I just thought, oh God, this is gonna be a really ugly confrontation. But instead, he came over and he started leading them in Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
This is not just another murder the state's gonna deal with. The state deals with hundreds of murders every single day. But this murder is different because the fags are bringing us out here to try and make Matthew Shepard into a poster boy for the gay lifestyle. And we're going to answer it. It is just that simple.
6 months later, the company returned to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, the first of the 2 perpetrators. It was to be a capital murder trial. When we arrived at the Albany County Courthouse, Fred Phelps was already there.
You don't like that attribute of God.
But so was Romaine Patterson.
That perfect attribute of God. Well, we love that attribute of God, and we're going to preach it. Because God's hatred is pure. It's a determination. It's a determination that he's going to send some people to hell. That's God's hatred.
After
We're standing
seeing
here with
Fred
God's
Phelps protesting at Matthew's funeral and finding out that he was coming to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, I decided that someone needed to stand toe-to-toe with this guy and show the differences. And I think, at times like this, we're talking about hatred. As much as the nation is right now, that someone needs to show that there is a better way of dealing with that kind of hatred. So our idea is to dress up like angels, and so we have designed an angel outfit where our wings are huge like their big-ass wings. What we're gonna do is we're gonna encircle Phelps. Because of our big wings, we are gonna completely block him. So this big-ass band of angels comes in. We don't say a fucking word. We just turn our backs to him and we stand there. And we are a group of people bringing forth a message of peace and love and compassion. And we're calling it angel action.
When those preachers lay their hands on me, they call it an ordination. Then they deliver a charge. Mine comes from Isaiah 58. Cry loud, spare not, raise thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgressions.
And I knew my angel was going to be taking the brunt of everything he had to yell and say. I mean, we were going to be blocking his view, and he was going to be pissed off to all hell. So I went out, and I bought all my angels earplugs.
Session.
As soon as they started jury selection, you know, everybody was in my shop with, I don't want to be on this trial, I hope they don't call me, or, oh my God, I've been called, how do I get off? Just wanting to get as far away from it as they could. Very fearful that they were going to have to be a part of that jury. And I heard Henderson had to sit in the courtroom while they questioned some of the prospective jurors, and one of the questions that they asked is,
would you be willing to put this person to death?
And to my understanding, some of the responses were,
Yes, I would, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Yep.
but can you imagine hearing that juror after juror after
You entered a not guilty plea earlier, Mr. Henderson, but I understand you wish to change that plea today. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that the recommended sentence here is 2 life sentences.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that those may run concurrent or they may run consecutively?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Henderson, I will now ask how you wish to plead, guilty or not guilty.
Guilty.
Before the court decides whether they will run consecutively or concurrently, I understand there are a few statements to be made by at least one individual.
This is an excerpt made from the statement from the court by Lucy Thompson.
As the grandmother and the person who raised Russell along with the family, we have written the following statement. Our hearts ache for the pain and suffering the Shepards have went through. Many times throughout the day I've thought about Matt. And I know that his pain and suffering is your pain and suffering as well. Your Honor, as your sentence, Russell, I will hope that you will do it concurrently 2 life terms. For the Russell we know and love, we humbly plead that you will not take him out of our lives forever.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you have a constitutional right to make a statement now if you choose to do so. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Yes, I would, Your Honor. Mr. and Mrs. Shepard, there is not a day that goes by that I don't see what happened that night. I know what I did was wrong, and I'm very sorry for what I did. You have my greatest sympathy for what happened. I hope that one day you'll be able to find it in your hearts to forgive me. Your Honor, I know what I did was wrong. I'm very sorry for what I did, and I'm ready to repay my debt for what I did.
Mr. Henderson, you drove the vehicle that led Matthew Shepard to his death. You tied him to that fence in order that he might be more savagely beaten, and in order that he might not escape to tell his tale. You left him out there for 18 hours, knowing full well that he was there, perhaps having a chance to save his life. And you did nothing. Mr. Henderson, this court does not believe that you really feel any true remorse for your part in this matter, and I wonder if you fully understand the gravity of what you have done. The court finds it appropriate, therefore, that sentence be ordered as follows. As to count 3, that being felony murder with robbery, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. On count 1, kidnapping, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. Sentencing for count 1 to run consecutive to sentencing for count 3.
After the trial, we spoke with Russell Henderson's Mormon home teacher.
I've known Russell's family for 38 years. Russell's only 22, so I've known him his entire life. I ordained Russell a priest of the Mormon Church, so you can imagine when this happened, disbelief. After the sentencing, the church held a disciplinary council, and the result of that meeting was to excommunicate Russell from the church. That means that your name is taken off all the records, so you just disappear. Russell's reaction to that was not positive. It hurt him, and it hurt him too to realize how serious a transgression he had committed. But I will not desert Russell. That's a matter of my religion and my friendship with the family.
Before we left Laramie, we spoke again with Rebecca Hilliker at the theater department. She is producing Angels in America this year at the university.
I think that's the focus the university has taken. That we have a lot of work to do. And the question is, how do we move? How do we reach a whole state where there's some really deep-seated hostility towards gays? How do we reach them? This is just the beginning. And guess who's auditioning for the lead?
My parents.
Jedediah Schultz.
My parents were like, so what plays are you doing this year at school? And so I told them Angels in America, and I gave them the whole list of plays, and they're like, Angels in America, isn't that, you know, that play you did in high school, that scene you did in high school? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, huh, so are you gonna audition for it? And I was like, yeah. And we got in this huge argument. And the best thing I knew I had them on was like, they just seen me on stage in a performance of Macbeth, and like, on stage I like killed this little kid and like Lady Macduff and like these 2 other guys, and she goes, you know, homosexuality is a sin. She kept on saying that, and I go, Mom! You just saw me play murder tonight! Didn't seem to have a problem with that. I tell you, I've never prepared myself for a role this much in my life. Never, ever. I mean, not even close.
Not having to deal that much with the gay society here in Laramie.
Detective Sergeant Rob Debris.
Once we started working in the case and actually speaking to people that were gay and finding out what their underlying fears were, well, that's when it sort of hit home. This is America. You don't have the right to feel that fear. Sure, there are going to be people that hold with the old ideals, and I was probably one of them 14 months ago. But I'm not going to listen to it, and I'm not going to put up with it. And if you don't like my views on it, fine. The door goes both ways. I've already lost a couple of buddies. I don't care. I feel more comfortable, and I can sleep at night.
Well, you're tested every 3 months.
Reggie Flutie.
And I was able to get the DNA test done. And so they got me to Fort Collins.
Remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used against you in a court of law.
This is an excerpt of that confession.
Okay, so you guys, you and Russ, are at the fireside. So you're at the fireside by yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where do you go after you leave the fireside?
Some kid wanted a ride home.
What does he look like?
Like a queer. Such a queer dude.
Queer.
Yeah, like a fag, you know.
How did you meet him?
He wanted to ride home, and I just thought, well, the dude's drunk, so let's just take him home.
When did you and Russ talk about jacking him up?
We kind of talked about it at the bar.
What happened next?
Well, we drove him out past Walmart. We get out there, and he starts grabbing my leg and grabbing my genitals. I told him, look, I'm not a fucking faggot. If you touch me again, you're gonna get it. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do, but I beat him up pretty bad. I think I killed him.
What did you hit him with?
I blacked out. My fist, the pistol, the butt of the gun, wondering what happened to me. I had a few drinks and I don't know. It's like I could see what was going on, but I don't know. It's like someone else was doing it.
What was the first thing that he said or that he did that made you hit him in the truck?
Well, he put his hand on my leg, and he slid his hand down my leg like as if he was going to grab my balls.
When that defense team argued that McKinney did what he did because Matthew made a pass at him, I just wanted to vomit because that's like saying it's okay. It's like the Twinkie defense when the guy killed Harvey Milk and Moscone. It's the same thing.
As much as part of me didn't want the defense of them saying it was gay panic or it was gay bashing, part of me is really grateful because I thought they would say it was because of drugs or something else. So when they used gay panic as their defense, I thought, this is good. If nothing else, the truth will be told. The truth is finally coming out.
Did he ever try to defend himself against you or hit you back?
Yeah, he tried his little swings or whatever, but he wasn't very effective.
How many times did you hit him in the truck before you stopped where you left him?
I'd say I hit him about 2 to 3 times with my fist, about 6 times with the pistol.
Did he ask you to stop?
Well, yeah, he was getting the shit kicked out of him.
What did he say?
Well, after he asked me to stop, most of all he was doing was screaming.
So then Russ dragged him over the fence and tied him up, I'm assuming?
Something like that. I just remember Russ was laughing at first. Then he got pretty scared.
Was Matthew conscious when Russ tied him up?
Yeah, I turned him around so he wouldn't look at my license plate number because I was scared he would tell the police. I turned him around, I asked him what my license plate said. He read it, so I hit him a few more times.
Just in case? Obviously you don't like gay people.
No, I don't.
Did you say you hate them?
I don't really hate them, but when they start coming on to me and stuff, I can get pretty angry.
This guy threaten you?
This gay dude?
Yeah.
Not really.
Can you answer me one thing? Why did you guys take his shoes?
I don't know. Now I'll never get to see my son again.
I don't know, you'll probably go to court sometime today.
Today? So you're saying I'm gonna go in there and plead guilty or not guilty today?
Nope, you'll just be arraigned.
He is gonna die for sure.
There is no doubt that Matthew Shepard is going to die.
So what are they gonna give me? 25 to life or just the death penalty and get it over with?
It's not for me to decide. It's the judge's job and the jury.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We, the jury, impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled case after having well and truly tried the matter, unanimously find as follows. As to the charge of kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of aggravated robbery, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree felony murder with kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to
Aaron
the charge of
McKinney was
first-degree
found
felony
guilty
murder
of
with
felony
robbery,
murder,
we find the
which meant the
defendant,
jury
Aaron
could give him
James
the death
McKinney,
penalty.
guilty. As
The
to the charge of
following morning,
premeditated first-degree murder,
Judy and
we
Dennis
find the
Shepard were
defendant,
approached
Aaron
by
James
McKinney's
McKinney,
defense
not
team,
guilty.
pled for their client's life.
As to the lesser
The
included
prosecution
offense of second-degree
indicated
murder, we
that
find
they
the
would
defendant,
defer to the
Aaron
family's
James
wishes
McKinney,
as to
guilty.
whether or not to pursue the death penalty. The following evening, Dennis Shepard made a statement to the court. Here's some of what he said.
My son Matthew did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner. On October 6th, 1998, my son tried to show the world that he could win again. On October 12th, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero lost. On October 12th, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero died 50 days before his 22nd birthday. I keep wondering the same thing I did when I first saw him in the hospital. What could he have become? How could he have changed his little piece of the world to make it better? Matt officially died in a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. He actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, tied to a fence. You, Mr. McKinney, with your friend, Mr. Henderson, left him out there by himself, but he wasn't alone. He had lifelong friends with him, friends that he had grown up with. You're probably wondering who these friends were. First, he had the beautiful night sky with the same stars and moon that we used to see through a telescope. Then he had the daylight and the sun to shine down on him, and through it all, he was breathing in the scent of pine trees from the snowy range. He heard the wind, the ever-present Wyoming wind, for the last time. He had one more friend with him. He had God. And I feel better knowing he wasn't alone. Matt's beating, hospitalization, and funeral have focused worldwide attention on hate. Good is coming from evil. People are saying enough is enough. I miss my son, but I am proud to say that he was my son. Judy has been quoted as being against the death penalty. It has also been stated that Matt was against the death penalty. Both of these statements are wrong. Matt believed that there were crimes and incidents that justified the death penalty. I, too, believe in the death penalty. Mr. McKinney, I would like nothing more than to see you die. However, this is the time to begin the healing process. To show mercy to one who refused to show any mercy. Mr. McKinney, I am going to grant you life, as hard as it is for me to do, because of Matthew. Every time you celebrate Christmas, a birthday, the 4th of July, remember that Matt isn't. Every time you wake up in your prison cell, remember that you had the opportunity and the ability to stop your actions that night. You robbed me of something very precious, and I cannot forgive you for that. Mr. McKinney, I give you life in memory of one who no longer lives. May you have a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it.
Me and Debris hugged and cried, and everybody just had tears in their eyes and were just so thankful, you know? And then Mr. Shepard started crying, and that just got me bawling, and everybody just...
This is all we've lived and breathed for a year. Daily. This has been our pace daily, and now it's over.
Maybe now we can move on and quit being stuck, you know?
Just maybe today, the minute I got out of the courthouse, that the reason God wanted me to find him was for he didn't have to die out there alone, you know? And if I wouldn't have found him, they wouldn't have found him for a couple of weeks at least. So I feel really good that he didn't have to die out there alone.
I'm just glad that it's over. I really am. Testifying in that trial was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And don't get me wrong, I love the stage. I really do love it, but it's tricky because basically what you have is lawyers questioning you from this angle, but all your answers need to be funneling this way towards the jury. And that's hard for me because I'm a natural conversationalist, so it's only natural instinct that when someone looks me in the eye, I answer them and make eye contact. It's kind of hard when you have to change your position, in effect, scoot over and funnel over to where the jury is. But I was able to do that several times over the course of my testimony.
On our last trip, I had the pleasure of seeing Jedediah Schultz play the role of Pryor in Angels in America. After a performance, we spoke.
I never let myself become personally involved in the Matthew Shepard thing. It didn't seem real. It seemed way blown out of proportion. I mean, Matthew was just a name instead of an individual. I don't know, it's so weird. I just feel bad. You know, for all the things I said, for the person I used to be. That's why I want to hear those interviews from last year when I said all that stuff. I don't know, I just can't believe I ever said that stuff about homosexuals. I mean, how did I ever let myself think that you were any different from me?
This is Romaine Patterson.
Well, a year ago, I wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal. And, well, now it's obviously changed in the fact that, well, throughout the last year, I've really realized my role in taking my part. So now, instead of going to school to be in music, I'm going to go to school for communications and political science because I have a career in political activism. Actually, I just recently found out that I'm going to be honored in Washington, D.C. from the Anti-Defamation League. And whenever I think about the Angels or any other speaking I've done, you know, Matthew gave me, it's like Matthew's guiding this path for me to walk down with his little light, and every time we get to like a door, he opens it and says, okay, next step. And if I get to be a rock star inside, okay.
This is Jonas Slonaker.
Change is not an easy thing, and I don't think people wanted it here. They got what they wanted. Those two boys got what they deserved, and now we look good for it. Justice has been served. The OK Corral. We shot down the villains. We sent the prostitutes on the train. The town cleared up, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. You know, it's been a year since Matthew Shepard died, and they haven't passed shit in Wyoming. Any state level, in any town. No one anywhere has passed any kind of anti-discrimination, hate crime legislation. Nobody anywhere has passed anything. So what's come out of this? What has come out of this that's concrete or lasting?
We all said we would meet again, one last time at the fence.
I've been up to that spot in my limousine, okay? And I remember to myself when him and I drove around, and he said to me, Laramie sparkles, doesn't it? If you sit there, if you sit right up there exactly where he was sitting, Laramie sparkles from there with the low-lying cloud. It's the blue lights bouncing off the airport. It goes tss, 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 right over the entire town. It just blows you away. If you sit there, you can just picture it. If you sit there exactly where he was sitting, Laramie sparkles from there.
We spent the last 2 days packing a year's worth of materials and saying our goodbyes. We've been here over 6 times and conducted over 200 interviews. Jedediah cried when we left.
Marge wished us luck, and when we asked her how Laramie would feel seeing a play about itself, she said,
I think we'd enjoy it. To show it's not the hellhole of the earth would be nice, but that's up to how you portray it, and that in turn is up to how Laramie behaves.
And as we were getting off the phone for the last time, she said to me,
Now you take care. I love you, buddy.
Doc asked me if I wanted to ghostwrite a book about the whole event. Galloway offered me or anyone else a place to stay if and when we come back to Laramie. He also seemed interested as to whether there'd be any open auditions for this play. We left Laramie about 7 in the evening. On the way to Denver, I looked in my rearview mirror to see if I could get one last look at the town.
And I will speak with you. I will trust that if you write a play of this, you will do your best to say it right. You need to do your best to say it correct.
And in the distance, I can see the sparkling lights of Laramie, Wyoming.